Greetings, CinemaBlend fans! I'm events editor Eric Eisenberg.
And I'm staff writer Conner Schwerdtfeger.
And with the Avengers Infinity War now just a few weeks away from release, we are taking a look back at all of the Marvel Studios movies to date and seeing how they lead up to the major blockbuster. Let's dive in. We are starting to run out of Marvel movies, folks, because we are officially entering Phase 3 and the year of 2016 for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And of course, that means we are starting off with Joe and Anthony Russo's Captain America Civil War, which, in my opinion, is the best of the Marvel movies to date. It easily gets me most excited for Infinity War. Joe and Anthony Russo and Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely, who are the writing directing team that are moving from Civil War to taking on this movie. But let's talk about all of the major important things that happen in this movie that lead into this film, because there are several.
Okay, I think the biggest thing that we need to talk about is where it leaves Captain America and Iron Man by the end of this movie. It's the Civil War. It's the movie that drives the rift between them and scatters the heroes leading into Infinity War. And I think that's going to be huge going into this movie.
That is absolutely major. The fact that, like, when Thanos arrives, all the Avengers are not exactly friends. In fact, like, most of them are living lives as fugitives. The Avengers don't really exist as a team. It's basically a really depressed Iron Man, a crippled War Machine, and a Vision who doesn't really know what he's doing with his life anymore. Yeah. So, and of course, we later learn in Spider-Man Homecoming that even Peter Parker kind of rejects that team offer. So, literally, Avengers disassembled, to take a title from the comics. But if we are talking about villains, I think one person we have to kind of be on the lookout for is Zemo.
Zemo, you know,
I think that he, like, just given the end of Captain America Civil War, where he was arrested by, you see him in that scene with Martin Freeman's character.
Just his little quote.
To see it fail so spectacularly. Did it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The idea that he clearly has a plan, and even though, like, technically was supposed to end with his suicide, it didn't. So I feel like there's something about his presence that might keep things pushing forward.
I think another thing worth talking about is the fact, and you already brought him up, Vision. We really get the first sense of him, you know, I wish to understand this stone in my head. We're getting the first insight into his curiosity towards the Mind Stone, which is the Infinity Stone that shows up in Civil War, which is a big deal for Infinity War.
And really just puts a target on his back. It's a serious problem for him, and that's considerable. So let's talk about the grade that we are going to give this movie. How important do you think it is to watch Civil War before watching Infinity War?
10? I mean, yeah, I mean, it's like, I mean, I think it's, out of all the Phase 3 movies we've seen so far, it, like, directly, you know, goes into Infinity War. It's a big one.
I think of all of the movies that you need to see in Phase 3 specifically, Civil War is a 10 out of 10. Moving along to November 2016, it is time to discuss the last Marvel Studios origin story that we got to see, Scott Derrickson's Doctor Strange.
It's a good one.
This, of course, is a major movie for the development of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, mostly because up to this point we've been dealing with action movies with bits of sci-fi in them, but this is the first movie that really goes full-on fantasy.
Yeah, because in Phase 1 they really tried to pass off magic. It's like, oh no, it's advanced science, but it's
you literally had Jane Foster, like, quoting Arthur C. Clarke to saying that science fiction is just science that we don't understand.
But in this movie, they go full tilt. They're like, no. Mysticism, it's real, it exists, and Stephen Strange, he's in it now.
Yep. Yeah. And so, obviously, you have this entire story introducing what should be one of the most important characters in the Avengers Infinity War. Oh, yeah. In not only Doctor Strange, but Wong looks like he is going to be front and center.
I love how big of a role Wong seems to have in these trailers.
Yeah, right?
He's been worried about what it could mean for him. Because if you go back to the Infinity Gauntlet storyline, I believe he is one of the ones who disappears when Thanos snaps his fingers. You know, spoiler alert for the decades-old
also story. Happens to Hawkeye, which is interesting.
Yeah, but anyway.
But the larger point is that you are introduced to this whole idea of magic, the idea of what the Kamar-Taj is down in Nepal, the idea that there are, and actually, even perhaps more importantly, the fact that there are multiple dimensions, that you are dealing with an entire multiverse, which, you know, being the fact that you are dealing with, for example, the Reality Stone, you are potentially going to introduce the idea of other timelines, which, you know, that's a significant thing.
And speaking of time, there's another big development that happens in this movie in the Time Stone.
We got the Time Stone, the arrival of our fifth and final Infinity Stone.
And you're better with this than me. Pronounce it. Eye of
Agamotto.
Agamotto.
Which in the comics is just kind of a it's a token. It's an emblem that he uses to kind of generate his power. However, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it is obviously the Time Stone. It has the ability to control magic, control time in all of its forms. It can create time loops. It can bring things forward in time, backwards in time. Basically, when Thanos gets a hold of it, we are all seriously screwed.
And I think the way we see that thing used in the climax in Hong Kong is scratching the surface of the amount of time travel and
absolutely.
like time manipulating that we're going to see.
1 out of 10, leading up to Avengers Infinity War, where are you going to put Doctor Strange?
I'm going to go about a 6. I think it's important. I don't think it's the most important in Phase 3. You know, magic, mysticism, Doctor Strange, and the Time Stone are all big, but I don't think it's that important.